This song that we're about to learn is a song that's entitled Somebody's Hurting My Brother. Now, this song
Can you hear me? Oh, that actually does. It's picking up a lot better. Because I'm not projecting or trying, and I can definitely hear my own echo. Huh? 30 seconds.
Good morning, and welcome back. Good morning, and welcome to the worship service of the First Unitarian Church of Hobart, Indiana. My name is Sandy Waters, and I participate in the life of the church by serving as president of the Board of Trustees and a few other things beside. We are a religious community of people with diverse beliefs and shared values. Our diverse beliefs are expressed in our 6 sources, and our shared values are expressed in our 7 principles, both of which can be found at uua.org and on the inside of our hymnals. While those of us who are here in person today are happy to be back, we are also streaming this service online for those who couldn't be here today. The joys and sorrows portion of our service, however, is private, and we will take a break from streaming during that part of the service. The sermon portion of the service will be recorded and will be available for future viewing on Facebook, YouTube, and the church website. Let me take a moment to remind everyone of the amazing work that has been done in the parish hall and the offices, and give a resounding thank you to Tracy, James, and Roz for all of their work. And a couple of announcements. There will be a community prayer for Ukraine this Tuesday, March 15th at 6 o'clock in Festival Park here in Hobart, 111 East Old Ridge Road. That's Tuesday, 6 o'clock, Festival Park, 111 East Old Ridge Road. It's being attended by several of the churches in Hobart, so I really would love it if some of us showed up. And then also, we're doing our own effort here at the church for Ukraine. We're going to be, our collections for loose change, for social change, for March and April are going to be going to Razom for Ukraine. It's an organization that is focused on purchasing medical supplies and satellite phones for Ukrainians at this time. And we have another announcement.
Good morning. For those of you who don't know, I am Tina Porter. I am chair of our ministerial search committee, and I wanted to give you a quick update. We got a minister. We are, Sandy and Carl will be finalizing the contract this week, we hope, and then I'll be able to give you a name and more details. But for the moment, I just wanted to share this great joy and to thank Tracy up in the balcony, Stephanie, Pete, and Carla. Are you here? Carla. You guys stand up and take a bow or something, because it's been a lot of hard work and we thank you for it. So again, Again, we're very excited. It was a unanimous agreement by the search team that this was the person that we wanted to lead this church going forward and, well, lead with us going forward. And we just can't wait to introduce you to them and yes. Us. Yes.
Now that was a nice surprise, right? Yeah. Please take a deep breath, or several if you need to, and join us in the spirit of reverence.
At this time, join us in lighting our chalice. Words are on these laminates. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in the celebration of the life we share together. Thank you.
For our opening hymn this morning, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Our guests today, Becky Chambers, April Valentine, Lieber Booker, and Ed Watroka, are going to be leading us.
This song that we're about to learn is a song that's entitled Somebody's Hurting My Brother. Now, this song was actually born in a town hall meeting around coal ash. And the meeting came about because Duke Energy was spilling coal ash into poor black and brown and poor white neighborhoods. After hearing testimony after testimony of people who were impacted physically and mentally by the coal ash, this song came as an inspiration of those testimonies. So I'll call to you, somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on, and your response is, far too long. Yes, it's gone on.
Far too long.
It's gone on.
Far too long.
Somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on.
Far too long.
Now it is, and we won't be silent anymore. We'll say that together.
And we won't be silent anymore.
Okay? And so we'll try the rehearsal version, which goes, oh, somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on.
Far too long.
Yes, it's gone on.
Far too long.
I tell you it's gone on.
Far too long.
Oh, somebody's hurting my brother, and it's gone on.
Far too long.
Together.
And we won't be silent anymore.
And we're going to put a little rhythm
Good morning. Please stand as you are able and willing and join me now in our affirmation of faith. The words are printed in the order of service and down the screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now is the time we come to in our service where we greet your neighbor. We are striving to create a worship space which is both spiritual and safe. We recognize that not everyone can attend in person. We extend a special welcome to everyone who is joining us virtually today. Thank you to our tech team for making the live streaming and recording possible. For those of you who are in person, please take a moment to greet your neighbor by waving and letting your smile reach past your mask to your eyes.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Thank you. Good morning. Welcome.
This congregation expresses our greatest joys and deepest sorrows in community. We believe that a joy shared is magnified and a sorrow shared is diminished. We pause listening to what arises from our hearts. Your joys and sorrows will not be streamed online, nor will they be part of the service recording posted online. We will continue to refrain from passing the microphone today, so please speak loudly when you share your joys and concerns. If anyone cannot hear a speaker, please raise your hand, and I will do my best to paraphrase with the microphone. Who has a joy or a sorrow to share today? Yes. And now we will hear the story for the child in each of us.
Now, I have practiced reading this story about 7 or 8 times because it's one of those tearjerkers. So if I choke up a little bit, just bear with me. It's a wonderful story called Usha and the Stolen Sun. Usha was born under a gray sky. In her town, the sun hadn't shone for as long as anyone could remember. Anyone, that is, but her grandfather. When grandfather was little, he played in the sun, from the moment it climbed into the sky until it dropped back down at night. Everyone did. Where did it go? Usha asked, as she settled in for one of grandfather's many stories. One day, he explained, they built the biggest wall we'd ever seen, brick by brick, and it blocked out the sun. Why, grandfather? I couldn't imagine why, but I was only a child. Who, grandfather? Who were they? They were the people who made the rules. Why didn't you yell and scream and make them stop? We did yell, Usha whispered grandfather, but they were unmoved. Each time her grandfather told the story, it became harder and harder for him to remember. It's been too long, my Usha, grandfather told her. I'm afraid I will never feel the sun again. Usha decided to do something. Working from her grandfather's stories, Usha began to walk east in search of the sun. On the first day, she saw clouds pouring rain into puddles as big as swimming pools. On the second day, she walked through a forest of fog as thick as soup. On the third day, Usha saw something that stopped her in her tracks. She gave it a sniff. Was this the smell of sunshine? Usha hurried onward until night fell. Exhausted, she laid her blanket next to an enormous rock and fell asleep. The next morning, Usha opened her eyes. She couldn't believe what she saw. It wasn't a rock she was curled against, but a wall. Usha pushed the wall. She kicked the wall. And she tried without any luck at all to climb the wall. Finally, Usha faced the wall and said, "Wall, I have come all this way, now move." Oh, the wall didn't respond. "Wall," said Usha, louder this time. "You are in my way, now move." Nothing happened. "Wall," Usha shouted at the top of her lungs. "Move!" A brick began to wiggle. Usha, "Oh, who said that?" asked a voice from behind the wall. Usha imagined one of the people from her grandfather's stories. "I am Usha!" The brick stopped moving. Then Usha saw another brick shift back and forth. Why are you yelling? Asked another voice. I am here for the sun, Usha shouted. The brick was rammed back into place. Out of breath, Usha remembered what grandfather had told her. He had yelled, but they were unmoved. Usha studied the wall. Then she whispered, I want the sun. Several bricks began to shift. What did she say? Asked a boy. Shh, I can't hear her from behind this silly old wall, said another voice. I am here for the sun, Usha sang quietly into the wall. Then she began to share grandfather's stories. Some were sad and made Usha cry. Others were funny, and she laughed aloud. Many of the stories made Usha angry. She shared them all as brick after brick was removed. And just as Usha was almost out of words, the wall began to shake. The wall began to sway. And with a giant rumble, the wall crashed to the ground. When the dust cleared, Usha climbed the pile of bricks and saw children. She's just like us, one whispered. But now the sun shines on me too, said Usha. In that moment, she felt the sun for the very first time. It was warmer, brighter than words could have ever described. Through valleys and forests, over hills and mountains, Usha ran west. She watched the sun peek through the clouds and paint the gray sky away. Finally, she saw the light stream over grandfather's face. Usha was home, and so was the sun. And now I'm very pleased and overjoyed to introduce our speakers today. My friend Becky Chambers, April Valentine, Lieber Booker, and Ed Watrobka on the United States of Injustice.
Good morning. I'm Becky Chambers. Thank you for that wonderful story. When she said she smelled something, she said it must be sunshine. I was reminded of my grandmother who said, if you hang your sheets outside in the sun to dry, they will smell like sunshine. And they do. And they do. It's really nice to be here. It's really nice to see your faces. I know many of you from many different contexts, and I'm pleased to be here as a member of our Northwest Indiana cluster of the Poor People's Campaign. And our official title, it's really a long title, so I don't usually say the long title, but here's the long title. The Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival, which is what it is. And we, as a Poor People's Campaign, demand an end to the 5 interlocking injustices that define our country. They are as follows: racism, poverty, ecological devastation, the war economy and militarism, and the distorted moral narrative of religious nationalism. Sound familiar, any of those? We're going to talk about those this morning. I'm going to talk about the first one, racism. And I want to start by talking about the big lie. Put those in caps in your head. Big lie, okay? It's a lie that James Baldwin talked about. He describes it much more eloquently than I ever could. This is what he says: a place at once so free, yet so bound, always present, but never found. Now, we like to talk about our country, at least some of us do, as a shining light on the hill, a beacon of freedom and equality for the whole world to see. And all the while, we are a deeply racist society masquerading as a democracy. And for all people except most white folks, it's a very dangerous place and an often very violent place to live. And it will stay that way until we white folks decide to do something about it. First, we must develop a profound sense of self-awareness so that we can see, and I mean really see, the systemic racism and how, for us white people, it is a very beneficent structure. Second, we need to sit down, shut up, and listen to racism's victims. First, we need to listen to other countries, and the list is nearly endless, whom we have exploited and victimized, all the while telling ourselves that we're doing what is best for everyone, and all the while earning bucket loads of money doing it. Second, we need to listen to our own homegrown victims. This list is pretty endless too. Black, brown, Asian, Native American, Pacific Islanders, Hispanics, and even those whites whose poverty denies them access to white privilege. It's a big sigh after all that, I think. When we do manage to recognize our deeply structural racism, we will also have to find the courage to challenge our white brothers and sisters to do the same.
Good morning, and thank you again for inviting us to speak about the Poor People's Campaign. If you would take out $2 bills if you have them. Because I'll tell you what the purpose is in a few minutes. In Deuteronomy 8:17, chapter 8, verses 17 through 18, the author, likely Moses, wrote, "You may say to yourself, my power and the strength of my hands have produced this wealth for me. But remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth." We generally fail to acknowledge that God gave us the ability to produce wealth. As a society, we hold in high regard those with the most money. Yet the riches are only possible because of the work and spending of the 140 million poor and low-income people who themselves struggle to survive. Here are a few national statistics. Public assistance programs spend $153 billion annually as a direct result of low wages. Hunger costs $160 billion per year in increased healthcare costs and another $18.8 billion to poor educational outcomes. Child poverty costs more than $1 trillion per year in lost economic productivity, increased health and crime costs, and increased costs resulting from child homelessness and maltreatment. Raising the federal minimum wage from $7.25 to $15 per hour would put $328 billion into the hands of families and households who would spend most of that back into the economy. Raising the minimum wage by just those $2 could have prevented more than 57,000 suicides between 1990 and 2015. So people have killed themselves because they lacked those additional $2. In Indiana, approximately 36% of Hoosiers are poor or low income. That's about 2.3 million residents. This includes 52% of children, 44% of women, 64% of black people, 61% of Latinx people, and 36% of white people. Over 5,000 people in Indiana were homeless as of 2018. And the state minimum wage remains $7.25 per hour. A living wage in the state for a family of 3, with both adults working full-time, would be $14.99 per hour. That's practically $15 per hour. For a single parent with one child, it would be $27.23 per hour, just to make it, just a living wage. Elizabeth Strader, a college graduate residing in a small Indiana town among middle class and upper middle class neighbors, explained her plight during a hearing. She is also an underemployed single mother of two who works 15 hours per week, not by choice. She stated that until recently, I was able to feed my family on my benefits alone. This has been absolutely necessary because all my liquid income has to go toward massive debts I've accrued. But I recently learned that my SNAP benefits would have been reduced by more than half. I now somehow have to survive on $138 per month for my family of three. We do not live in a mom-friendly or child-friendly country. We face inadequate paid maternity leave, abysmal postpartum health care, and equally appalling access to quality child care and public education. If these problems didn't exist, I would never have needed to apply for SNAP in the first place. If these problems, inadequate health care, child care, and public education, lack of paid maternity leave, underfunded housing assistance, and shamelessly low wages didn't exist, our sisters such as Elizabeth and brothers will be able to live and thrive, not struggle to survive. These problems don't have to continue. We could resolve them by returning to an old concept of wealth that depended on one's connection to God, character, and integrity on an individual and national level. We must turn oppression of the poor to hope and work to change the policies and systems that impoverish all of us. As Fannie Lou Hamer, a voting rights warrior, admonished, you can pray until you faint, but unless you get up and try to do something, God is not going to put it in your lap. We all have work to do.
I sort of have 4 minutes, so I'm setting a timer for 3.5 to cut me off. Okay. I'm LeBray, and I want to, I'm covering ecological devastation. And I found this Wikipedia definition is environmental degradation, but I think it just like hits home. So, environmental degradation is the deterioration of the environment through depletion of resources, such as quality of air, water, and soil, the destruction of ecosystems, habitat destruction, the extinction of wildlife, and pollution. All of this here that I just read off is because of us. Every last one of us. If it wasn't for our need to overconsume, to not to this overconsumerism, you know, this silo out for self and lack of community. If it wasn't for that, but and the timer's still going. Okay, thank you. Okay, but it's all because of us, and we think we're helpless to saving the planet. But each one of us have a choice. We can choose to either buy that extra tomato because we may need it, or leave it, make do with what you have. And with us making that choice of less, not more, we are teaching the companies how much to produce, and all of this is in our hands. We just need to make a choice. Fannie Lou Hamer, yeah, you know, you praying and wishing is not going to do anything. It's time to take action, and action doesn't have to be huge. Any small little decision that we all make collectively makes huge impact. Yeah. So when it comes to the environment, something as simple as I'm a gardener. What vegetable do you like? Start with one plant. Think if just 25% of the population grew just one vegetable that their family really, really loves, the impact that that would have, the ripple effects of that. There's less transportation. There's less food waste, less transportation being used to get the food different places, less soil degradation, less forest, destroying the forest. They got terms for all this stuff, but yeah, just make a choice to do better, and my time is up. Oh, look at that, look at how God works. Okay, thank you all.
All right, I left my cell phone down there, so we'll see if that helps. If you weren't here in the beginning, my name is Ed. I'm here to talk about the Poor People's Campaign and militarism. If I have to be honest with everybody here, I was an English major, so this was all written last night, and it's heavily, heavily plagiarized. So, all right, so militarism is an ideology that creates a culture of fear and supports use of aggression, violence, and military interventions. It requires spending an obscene amount of money on the military and is built around the idea of the other as the enemy. And if I learned anything from Buddhism, from Jerry back there, it's a delusion. It's a delusion fueled by greed, hate, and ignorance. It's a false notion that we can create safety through war. Now, I'm not talking about defense. This is not defense. This is a bloody business that enriches military contractors and CEOs and hurts and kills the poor the most. And like all these issues, they are all interlocking. So it affects everything from ecological devastation, which the military is the biggest contributor to in the U.S. It contributes to racism, whether it's who we're targeting to be in the Army or who we're targeting by our bombs and our drones. It connects with all of it. But I'm just going to focus on one main negative effect. It is the draft, and it's the draft of the poor draft. So ever since we got rid of the national mandatory draft, we switched gears into enlisting and targeting the poor. This is because of all these other interlocking issues, economical and otherwise, and that when we can't afford a roof over our head, when we can't afford food in our stomachs, when we can't afford to go to school, the military offers, it targets this and it offers a supposed way out. So as we know, the truth is that the rich decide to go to war and the poor are sent to fight. Military recruiters take advantage of the lacking and target the poor and vulnerable. Maybe about a year after 9/11, I was heavily recruited by the Army. The Army hounded me at one specific recruiter, and very persistent. And I was able to get away from it by telling them about my allergies. I have an allergy to bullets. With a possible, it hasn't been confirmed, but a possible allergy to bombs. So that got the phone to stop ringing. But what also helped me is the truth of my privilege. I'm white. I grew up in a middle-class family that had enough money where I didn't go to bed at an empty stomach. I always had a roof over my head to protect me. I had college loan debt, but I could handle it. Well, I could defer it, but I can handle it. So I know that I had options. But not everybody has options. In a country where $782 billion was recently approved for national defense, but where food benefits and are constantly being cut, housing is insecure for millions, wages are stagnant, healthcare and education unaffordable, the military appears as a viable way out of poverty for many. And I'll just end with this quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who says, "A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death. So thank you.
I don't think I need to say very much about the twisted moral religious narrative that drives our understanding of our country. All of us here who have already talked have outlined pieces of it. I talked about racism, and that's fundamental. Yes. And we talked about ecological devastation. That's ultra-consumerism. I think you talked about it, ultra-consumerism. That also does it. That's a part of our narrative, and it's a part of our marketing system that tells us we need more, not less. And militarism, of course, I mean, we're this shining light on a hill for the world, because if you don't like us, we will bomb you. And so I would just suggest, you can all of you in your head think of what you have heard from our leaders for decades about who we are and what our role is in the world. We are not a country of peacekeepers. And that is really, I think, what we ought to be. But we are not. And the next time you hear some elected official talking about our role in the world, ask yourself, is this the role we should have? What should we do? Who should we align ourselves with? Who should we stand against? And how shall we stand against them? How shall we stand against them? It's been a pleasure to be with you, and thank you so much for your invitation.
Winging it here. Now is the time in our service for our offering. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. We give, I'm winging at this because someone else was supposed to do this. Okay, there is an online link on the screen for both one-time and regular donations. You can also contribute in person by putting paper money in loose change in these baskets and cups. And I need 4 volunteers, please. your prayers, your presence, your service, and your gifts. We are truly grateful. And now, the closing song will be led by our guests. The lyrics are in your order of service.
This morning's closing words come from Martin Luther King Jr. From a speech he gave in Chicago on August 31st, 1967, just 3 months before the first meeting of the Poor People's Campaign in November, and just 7 months before he was martyred on April 4th, 1968, as he was preparing to rejoin striking sanitation workers in their continuing struggle for union recognition. As we listen to King's words this morning, I think it's important to remember that the sanitation workers King was fighting for when he died in Memphis had no right to overtime, had no pension, no health care, no benefits whatsoever, and that they won their strike only after Martin Luther King's assassination galvanized 42,000 workers in the city to stand as one alongside the strikers. Here are Martin Luther King's words. We have deluded ourselves into believing the myth that capitalism grew and prospered out of the Protestant ethic of hard work and sacrifice. The fact is that capitalism was built on the exploitation and suffering of black slaves and continues to thrive on the exploitation of the poor, both black and white, both here and abroad. The time has come for America to face the inevitable choice between materialism and humanism. We must realize that the problems of racial injustice and economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power.
If you all would take a moment to extinguish the flame with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.